Thank you. Before we begin our oral argument session on June 3rd, we have a special commemoration for Justice Chin. Justice Ming Chin, who has served 25 years on the California Supreme Court alone, experiences today his final oral argument with this bench, his final opportunity to sit on the bench as a Supreme Court justice with his imminent retirement in August. And so, Ming, I saw the surprise expression on your face when you heard me say this, but our colleagues here all have something to say to you today. And I'll start with Justice Carol Corrigan.
Thank you, Chief. Occasionally, as you go through life, you encounter a day you never would have anticipated. And today is one of those. Who could have imagined that Ming Chin would retire from the California judiciary after more than 30 years on the bench, 14 of those on the California Supreme Court? And yet, here we are. So a little reflection is in order. Now, Ming is always quick to acknowledge that his approach to life was shaped by his parents, Sam Wong Chin and Shui Fong Chin. Together, they raised 8 children on a potato farm in Oregon, and Ming was their youngest. He was driving a hay baler and a combine long before he could get a license to drive a car. His youth in Klamath Falls was a life of hard work and sacrifice, but also a life with family at its center and a reverence for education. Ming chose the law because he saw his father, a bright, courageous, diligent man, taken advantage of by those who would exploit his immigrant status. Together and throughout his career, Ming has been devoted to fairness and inclusion and vocal about our shared obligation to continue to strive to build a more just society. Ming does not sit on the sidelines. After law school, he became a captain in the Army, serving in Vietnam and earning a Bronze Star. He returned to begin his legal career as a trial lawyer in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, moving to a distinguished civil practice and partnership at Aiken, Kramer and Cummings. Even as a young dad and busy professional, he joined community boards devoted to serving the disadvantaged and promoting education. He has been a professor of law at his beloved USF, served as vice chair of the Judicial Council, chaired innumerable committees, and was named Jurist of the Year in 2009. He has been the source of wise and insightful counsel to presidents, senators, and governors. But for all of that, Ming is never as happy as when he is with his family. He and Carol are proud and justly proud parents and grandparents, and if you are a friend of the Chins, you are, by virtue of that status, subsumed into their family. Now, many people have friends, but Ming Chin has friends who would walk through fire for him because they know with a certainty that he would do the same for them. He is as dependable as the sunrise, fiercely loyal, unfailingly kind and generous. Ming has the great gift of intellectual curiosity. He is almost unable to resist learning something new, and not the easy stuff either. As science and technology have advanced, he has been a leader in integrating those discoveries into the life of the law. He is as at home in a lab at the Salk Institute as he is at a judicial seminar. As the science of DNA began to evolve, he learned everything he could about it and about the statistical foundation of its application. He wrote groundbreaking opinions on its forensic use, and is recognized as an expert in his own right. He has lectured nationally and internationally on the topic. The law is often described as a conservative discipline, much more apt to look to the past than to move deftly into the future. But in every generation, the law depends on intellects like Ming Chin to understand the evolving present and to help guide the law into its future. Such visionaries are few and far between, but without them, the law would stagnate. President Kennedy once famously said of Averell Harriman, "We couldn't have had the 20th century without him." And in that same vein, it is impossible to imagine the evolution of California law without the influence of Ming Chin. Fortunately, we don't have to. We have his lasting legacy in his hundreds and hundreds of published opinions and scholarly writing. We have it in the tens of thousands of students, lawyers, and judges whom he has mentored and inspired. We have it in the lives of all Californians whom he has touched and will continue to touch with his wisdom and leadership. For more than 3 decades, I have been lucky enough to serve with Ming, to learn from him, to teach with him, and most of all, to treasure his friendship. And Ming, I join the chorus of others wishing you and Carol all the very best as you begin this new adventure. Thank you for being part of our lives and enriching this profession we are privileged to serve. And so, my friend, as the dispatcher broadcasts at the end of the final tour of duty, Justice Ming W. Chin is 10-7 for the final time. We have the watch from here. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Justice Corrigan. Justice Liu?
It's my pleasure to say a few words about my cherished colleague, Justice Ming Chin. For 9 years, it's been an honor to sit with Justice Chin on this bench. We literally sit together. On the bench, he's to my left and I'm to his right. From this proximity, I have learned that Justice Chin is a man of many habits. He likes his coffee. He likes to drink it hot from an insulated thermos. He likes sweets. On the bench, he keeps a small box of mints in his drawer, and he passes them around discreetly during oral argument. One day, one of our colleagues, who doesn't like mints, said M&Ms would be preferable. So, Justice Chin put M&Ms in the small box and passed those around with the mints. That's the kind of colleague Justice Chin is. My only regret, Ming, is that I didn't ask for Belgian truffles. Justice Chin is also a model of health and fitness. His golf game is fast-paced, some would say impatient. His commute to work involves a ferry ride and then a 2-mile run from the Embarcadero to Civic Center. For a few years, Justice Chin included me in his regular tennis game. I hope I can swing a racket like him when I'm near retirement. Much has been said and written about Justice Chin's life story. The son of Chinese immigrants who grew up on a potato farm, the youngest of 8 kids, a Catholic school graduate who went to college and then law school at the University of San Francisco. All opportunities that his parents never had. But it was not all about self-advancement, far from it. After law school, as you heard, Justice Chin served in Vietnam. It was a tough assignment, but he attained the rank of captain in the United States Army and earned a Bronze Star. He rarely speaks of the experience, but I remember one morning at the Justices' Weekly Conference, a colleague was recounting the joys of a recent camping trip and recommended the experience. To which Justice Chin said, "I've done enough camping in my life. I think I'll pass." Justice Chin's appointment to the bench has great personal significance for me. He was appointed at a time when there were very few Asian American lawyers, much less judges. And the infamous history of California's treatment of Chinese immigrants makes it all the more significant that this son of Chinese immigrants rose to the very top of the legal profession in the Golden State. His life and career are an inspiration to us all. When I think of Justice Chin, the following words come to mind: service, duty, humility, generosity, and unfailing decency in every setting to every person. Justice Chin is the very personification of the habits and values that we so badly need in public life today. Ming, you've more than earned a happy retirement with your beautiful family whom you love so much. Carol, Jennifer, Jason, all the grandchildren, and your extended family. I hope they are watching because today is a milestone for this court. Thank you, Ming, for your many years of service to our state and our nation, and thank you for your friendship, a blessing that I have enjoyed and hope to continue. Even though we are reduced to Hollywood squares at the moment, I still feel I could reach out and tap your elbow, just as if we were sitting on the bench, and say, enjoy your coffee, enjoy your sweets, and congratulations on a job well done. It's been an absolute honor to be your colleague, and I wish you a wonderful retirement.
Thank you, Justice Liu. Justice Cuellar.
Thank you. It's my privilege to say a few words to remember and commemorate the amazing service of my colleague and friend. It's one of those early summer days in the Bay Area, and I'm in my first year on the court. Justice Chin and his wife Carol have invited my family, several colleagues and friends to their house for a lunch of barbecued chicken. The warm sun blends perfectly with a hint of cool breeze in the Bay Area. We've enjoyed the food and engaging conversation for about an hour and a half when my wife realizes that our son isn't showcasing his very best table manners. Using our son's nickname to catch our son's attention quickly, I recall my wife saying, "Ming, wipe your fingers, use a napkin." Justice Ming Chin was just a few feet away and looked up a little startled, first at my wife and then at me. Unaware at first that my son's name, or at least nickname, is Ming, he must have been wondering if we'd taken too literally his invitation to make ourselves at home. A moment later, I was relieved to hear one of California's most iconic sounds, the hearty, soul-affirming laughter of Justice Ming Chin, a beautiful sound that could easily power much of Northern California and feeds not only the court's internal cohesion, but our engagement with the world. He eased the tension by working out clearly, as he would in his own opinions, who was Ming 1 and who was Ming 2. Justice Chin's own life and career could inspire hours of conversation. His pioneering role in public diplomacy in Asia, his fatherhood of 2 remarkable lawyers raised together with an amazing spouse, his willingness to nerd out with me about courts and technology, his clear and thoughtful opinions. But this morning, I want to focus on 2 of his enduring qualities: his lifelong commitment to public service and his gifts as a colleague. For most of his professional life, Justice Chin has enjoyed the privilege of serving the public. He served his country while deployed with the military half a world away. He did it closer to home as a deputy DA and in 4 different capacities in the judicial branch. Over the years, Justice Chin's public service has been a testament to steadiness in times that are changing and sometimes tumultuous. Anyone with even a passing sense of our court can readily appreciate that our decisions rarely make everyone, sometimes anyone, happy. His passion for his work was as dependable nonetheless as his good cheer and honesty. Whether in the military or on the bench, his work is sometimes called not only for careful judgment, but for courage. He delivered, and in doing so, offers the kind of example that my law students need in an hour of peril and frustration. Little wonder that his son and daughter are both in public service and in law. Any one of my fellow Californians can readily find at least a thumbnail sketch of this on a ballot statement or elsewhere in the public record. Far harder for them to know is what it feels like to be Justice Chin's colleague and his friend. His generosity is epic. His humanity and humor gently diffuse any number of situations that could have grown awkward or even testy. He warmly supports in 100 small and massive ways the institution he inhabits. The political theorist Justice Cuellar shared Ming's immigrant background. She once wrote, quote, that every adult should be able to make as many effective decisions without fear or favor about as many aspects of her life as is compatible with the like freedom of every other adult. Easier said than done. But realizing this kind of ideal takes the scaffolding that Ming has spent his career building and maintaining. That he's managed to do it with such warmth and humanity and humor is a great gift, as great a gift and example as I can imagine. I'd be quite a delighted father if my own Ming number 2 occasionally needs reminders. Use a napkin if he learns even a fraction from the precedent set by Ming number 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Cuellar. Justice Kruger. Sorry, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Thank you,
Yes.
Justice Cuellar. Justice Kruger?
Yes. When I reflect on Justice Chin's career on the bench, a number of words come to mind: trailblazer, veteran, judge, and advocate for justice. Justice Chin's many years of dedicated service to this court and to the pursuit of justice in all of California's courts are well known. But as you've heard this morning, what those of us who are lucky enough to work with him know is that Justice Chin is not just a remarkable judge. He is a remarkable person. He is the very embodiment of warmth and graciousness. When I first joined this court, he was the first to welcome me with a great smile on his face, and I can hardly think of a day that we have worked together since that I haven't enjoyed seeing that same smile. He starts off each one of the court's meetings with a healthy dose of humor, and in so doing, he manages to remind us all that we are, in addition to judges, colleagues and friends. Even when Justice Chin disagrees, he disagrees in a way that somehow manages to reinforce our sense of common purpose and commitment to service. I am grateful beyond words to have had the chance to work with Justice Chin these past few years. I'm grateful for the ideas we've traded, for the parenting tips we've shared, and for the M&Ms passed down the bench during oral argument. And so as we begin our final oral argument session together, I have just a few more words for Justice Chin. And those words are, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Justice Kruger. Justice Groban?
I feel incredibly fortunate to have been able to work with and learn from Justice Chin since I joined the court last year. I will forever be indebted for the warmness with which he welcomed me. Justice Chin's love of the court as an institution has made a lasting impression on me. He holds a deep respect for the court's history, its traditions, and its precedents. At such a time of great instability in our world, I have grown to appreciate more than ever Justice Chin's respect for the history and traditions of this place. Justice Chin is a person who seems to have never had a bad day, always upbeat, always excited about the work, always a smile on his face, and always a fond story about a beloved family member. He is an incredible colleague, thoughtful, smart, a good listener, practical, and compassionate. Of all that I have learned and observed from Justice Chin, and there is much, the thing that I appreciate most is his ability to agree with his colleagues with kindness and respect, and to disagree with his colleagues with even greater kindness and respect. I will hold his lessons dear as I continue to serve, and will hopefully be made better by them. Ming, you will be dearly missed.
Thank you, Justice Groban. Ming, as is so often the case, I often go last, and I have the benefit of my colleagues' eloquence, deep thought, brilliant minds, and all I can mumble is I concur, because I have nothing new to add to what they have all said. But I will say, at least in terms of my experience with you, that first, isn't it fitting that even if we cannot do this farewell in person, we're doing it remotely in a way that I know you would enjoy, because you would say to me, one day we'll be able to do this on my watch. And so in many ways, Ming, even though it's not the best substitute for an in-person commemoration, this fits you. A remote online farewell for you will always be precedent-setting, and how fitting for the person who has always advised the branch to move forward with technology. But I will say I know you as a mentor before you knew me. I remember in 2004 walking into a packed, massive ballroom. You were speaking. I couldn't get in. I stood outside. And what I remember you saying then in 2004 to a packed room of lawyers and judges was to remember the importance of diversity and inclusion in our staffing, in our committees, in our organizations, and remember it when we make decisions. That was in 2004, Ming, and that was my takeaway from being able to at least breathe the same air of that ballroom with you. I also know you and came to know you as a leader, particularly when I joined the Supreme Court and had the privilege of, as described here, to sit with you at the table in the robing room, even though while I sat, you did wall squats. Nevertheless, I learned from you in your leadership about what Carol has described as your scholarship, your law, your decisions, as has been described by all of our other colleagues, your collegiality. And because we were taking on a new administration and a new way and direction of the branch, I particularly value as a leader in policy with the Judicial Council, sitting to my left, always curious, always making inquiry, always commenting as the branch has evolved, and always being a part of every decision and bringing wisdom and kindness to every decision. I also want to speak to you as a friend. I thank you for all the times you found me in a crowd and asked, how am I doing? Do I need water? Saving me a place to sit, Carol feeding me. I remember very importantly the wise words of your wife, Carol, when we sat at a very fancy legal dinner and we were served a plate of food that had fingerling potatoes. And Carol laughed and said, when you were in a farm family, how fingerling potatoes were a reject and how they were thrown out because they were disdained. And now they're on a gourmet plate at a legal organization, which many ways to me was very symbolic about the experiences that all of us, you particularly, have had, but if you've made work in your pursuit of equality and equity in the judiciary. And so I want to thank you. I will miss you. I will miss your accomplished family, Carol, but I hope to see you, and I hope that you continue to be a vibrant part of the legal profession, because, my friend, you have so much to offer and to continue to offer, and you leave a void in many of our hearts and minds. So thank you, Ming, and this is one of many thanks for you, for your work, for your dedication, my friend.
I hardly know what to say. Thank you for your more than generous and very personal comments. I keep thinking of what the attorneys in the audience must be thinking. Are we ever going to get to work today? I really thought that we were going to bypass this tradition. About a week ago, the chief wrote to me and said, under these circumstances, can we say our goodbye in December? And I said, of course. I think Carol and I will be in town. And Carol Corrigan chimed in and said, oh, good, it will give me a lot more time to prepare my roast. So I thank you for your generous comments. This was a very hard decision for me. I mean, who in their right mind would want to leave a group of people like each of you and your staffs and the entire staff of the Supreme Court? You are remarkable colleagues. And Josh was absolutely right. I love this court. I love the institution. And in my mind, the institution is in excellent hands. I've worked with three very different but superb people. Connie, it has been such a pleasure every day to work with you. You have led with grit and grace in very difficult times. I fear that we have more difficult days ahead. I will always be here to help you. From Carol Corrigan over 30 years, and Josh Groban over the last year. Josh, it seems like 30 years. I have really enjoyed working with you. Carol, I can't say enough about your generosity and your remarks. Thank you for leaving out the roast. Goodwin, Leandra, and Tino, I remember that afternoon barbecue that Tino was talking about. We had a great time on our deck in the paddle boat. We got to know your children, you got to know my children and my grandchildren. Ming 2 wrote me a thank you note. From Ming 2 to Ming 1, thank you for a wonderful day. As Tino and his family were leaving, Tino turned to me and said, "We're moving in." I said, "We have plenty of room." I want to just express my concern over the current state of affairs. There is a Chinese word, a character for crisis. It is made up of two characters. One is danger, the other is opportunity. There is much danger in the crisis that we are facing in the pandemic and the civil strife. But let us get through this together. Let us convert the dissatisfaction that we have in this crisis, both in the pandemic and the civil strife, and let us turn it into an opportunity to change, to grow, to improve the judicial system. Tony mentioned the remote aspect of this oral argument. The future of law and the future of the courts will be virtual and remote. We have been forced to do it. I think we've adopted pretty well. But all the people that will use our judicial system will now insist that we handle some of their matters remotely so that they can continue working in their jobs, continue being with their families, and not taking entire days or weeks out to come and litigate their matters in our judicial system. I just last week swore in a new attorney remotely. In 2 weeks, I will give a lecture to the Panetta Institute to college students on our judicial system and judicial leadership remotely. This is going to be our future. Let us embrace it. Let us do it well. Let us make our judicial system more efficient for the people that we serve. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your generous comments. I will treasure it, and I will miss all of you dearly. Thank you.
Justice Chin, could you pass the M&Ms, please?
In accordance with our custom, it is ordered that the proceedings at this commemorative session be spread in full upon the minutes of the Supreme Court and published in the official reports of the opinions of this court, to later be presented to you, Justice Chin. Thank you.
Thank you.